Baby.
Both threatening an already fragile ceasefire. Today, the U.S. military says it blew up 6 Iranian small boats in the Strait of Hormuz after Iran launched.
Wow, they blew up 6 jet skis, dude. Profound military achievement. Profound military accomplishment by the world's most powerful naval force. Okay? Wow, they blew up 6 go-fast boats. It's over. Fox News is going to write another article. Yeah, I don't really care.
Quote, multiple cruise missiles, drones, and small boats at U.S. Navy ships and commercial vessels. The exchange of fire happening just hours after President Trump announced that the U.S. will begin helping guide stranded ships out of the strait. Meantime, the UAE is accusing Iran of renewed missile and drone attacks, the first since early April, including a drone strike on an Emirati oil port, causing a large fire and injuring 3 people there, according to officials. Let's go to CNN's Kristen Holmes at the White House right now. So, Kristen, what is the administration saying as tensions with Iran appear to be escalating?
It's not just the tensions that are escalating, Boris. We're also hearing it in President Trump's rhetoric. He just did a brief phone interview with Fox in which he said essentially that if the Iranians target U.S. ships in the area, that they will be, quote, blown off the face of the earth. Now, during this interview, he also said that the Iranians were more malleable now, that he did believe that there could be some kind of negotiation that led to a deal. But I've got to tell you, we are in a very different place now than we were at the end of last week. I was hearing from U.S. officials at the end of last week, senior administration officials who were saying that they felt really good about the direction that this was going in. Instead, now we're starting to see this really seem to devolve. And President Trump posted on social media about what we were seeing in the Strait, saying Iran has taken some shots at unrelated nations in respect to the ship movement. And he also noted it was a South Korean cargo ship. Then he essentially says that maybe South Korea should join them on this mission, talking about the war in Iran. And then he goes on to talk about the fast boats, which we've heard about, and then that tomorrow there's going to be another one of these press briefings by the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane. But where we are right now, talking to these officials, is it does not seem as though they are in a place where they feel that they can get to some kind of agreement here, which is very different again than what we heard at the end of last week.
Kristen Holmes, live force at the White House. Thank you so much. Let's turn to CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, what are you learning as the U.S. and Iran are trading strikes now?
Yeah, Boris, our U.S. Central Command Chief, Admiral Bradley Cooper, he held a call with reporters earlier today, and he kind of outlined how the U.S. military is going about trying to guide these commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz, essentially via a huge U.S. military presence that involves guided missile destroyers, over 100 land and sea-based aircraft.
Yeah, it's incredible. He didn't even mention the ongoing strikes on the UAE, lol. Iran has taken some shots at unrelated nations with respect to the ship movement, Project Freedom, including a South Korean cargo ship. Perhaps it's time for South Korea to come and join the mission. We've shot down 7 small boats, or as they like to call them, fast boats. It's all they have left. Other than the South Korean ship, there has been, at this moment, no damage going through the strait. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane will have a news conference tomorrow morning. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. CENTCOM's commander wants to keep it a secret whether he knows if Iran has hit his own ships. Yeah, Commander Admiral Bradley Cooper says more commercial ships are en route to travel across the strait after 2 U.S. flags successfully traveled out of the strait. When I asked how many ships had been hit by Iran, he declined to give a number. Don't tell the enemy you know what they've been able to achieve. Seems great. Seems like a very seems like a resounding success, chat. Seems like a lot of victories are taking place. Sources tell me the idea of Dubai is stable. Please, God. CENTCOM Chief Admiral Brad Cooper says UAE has exceptional capabilities and is well positioned to defend itself. UAE has been a great teammate to the U.S. Iran's military capabilities dramatically degraded, but that doesn't mean it's all gone. We need air support. You can do it. Oh my God. Trump is Pootler. Trump literally is Pootler. So this this image, for those of you who don't know, if you're not like super autistic and tapped into, the situation monitoring for many years now, this image is from Syria specifically. Okay. It's and not just Ukraine, but also from the Syrian conflict as well. It's a Putin monkey meme. Okay. It's whenever Vladimir Putin does something unbelievably stupid, where he just like, writes off his allies or something of that sort, or just does something inexplicable. Okay, they'll put this meme up of Vladimir Putin as playing chess as a monkey. Okay, now they're using it for Donald Trump, because this is something not dissimilar to what Vladimir Putin would have done in Syria, right? Like the Bashar al-Assad government being like, hey, we need help right now, and then Putler says, you can do it. Here's some emotional support for you. He need banana. Yeah, that kind of thing. And now, given the Russification that has taken place in the American Central Command, they're now saying, Trump is also behaving in a way not dissimilar to Adolf Putler. Yeah, this is the initial meme. Yeah. Playing Russia and having lots of units and aircraft ready near Georgia for the 2008 war. I actually forgot about them after beating Chechnya. Yeah, Monkey Putin is like a classic meme. It's even funnier because Putin is allies with the new Syrian government. That is the most expected outcome of all time. It harkens back to that joke. Okay, that the whole joke is that, yes, Putler has no friends whatsoever, only immediate goals. He doesn't give a shit. That's why I always laugh whenever people are like, Vladimir Putin is engaging in an anti-imperialist war against the Western forces. It's like, that's not true. That's never been, never really been true. Lindsey Graham says Trump needs to help champion ally UAE. Anyway. Okay. Borzo Daragai says the UAE, the fact that or Sultan Al Ali, the fact that the Arab League is silent while the IRGC targets the UAE and threatens shipping is unacceptable. Why haven't we heard clear condemnations on these attacks? The pattern is obvious, and the ambition to expand influence across the Gulf is no secret. Silence at this point isn't neutrality, it's complicity. I wonder why the GCC is not saying a goddamn thing about the UAE being pummeled again. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that the United Arab Emirates has literally decided to become, Muslim Israel. They left the GCC, and on top of that, they said, yeah, we're backing America and Israel all the way. The UAE allowed itself to be turned into an Israeli base at a time when not just the Arab world, but much of the entire planet has turned against Israel as a genocidal rogue state. Now, the UAE advocates are frustrated that no one is coming to his defense. Of course, no one's coming to his defense. It's really funny that America is not even coming to the UAE's defense, by the way. What's happened since Trump announced his plan to move ships out of the Hormuz, says Sina Tusi, senior fellow at CI Policy. UAE appears central to it, and indeed to contingency plans to restart the war. Iran has responded with reported attacks on UAE and expanded its control zone over all UAE ports. Tehran isn't letting up. Or not, sorry, the UAE didn't leave the GCC. The UAE left OPEC. I apologize. Which, is the center of power for the GCC. The cartel that is OPEC Plus, is the only reason why the GCC has fucking power. Trita Parsi analysis on drop site. All right, we'll look at friend of the show Trita Parsi's take on this. But just in, President Trump said Washington will launch a maritime effort. Oh, this was last night. President Trump said Washington will launch a maritime effort starting Monday morning, which has already started. Okay. To escort foreign vessels out of the Strait of Hormuz, citing requests from countries with ships stranded amid regional tensions. Trump described the plan, Project Freedom, as a humanitarian mission and said any interference from Iran will be met forcefully. He also said, I'm fully aware that my representatives are having very positive discussions with the country of Iran and that these discussions could lead somewhere very positive for all. Iran had also released some demands that are basically the same as the previous demands, but parsing it up in a short-term and long-term negotiations process. They did that yesterday. But what's funny about all of this is that all the oil futures pumping from Operation Freedom has already been wiped out by the missile and drone attacks on the UAE, lol. Yeah. The interesting predicament here is that it seems as though the Trump administration is going to continue conducting military operations rather than engaging Iran diplomatically. So, money molestation is still taking place. And of course, this kind of, according to Trita's analysis at the very least, this kind of actually leans into Iran's goals, right? If Iran's goals were to restart the war, if Iran believes that it can hold out and continue punishing the global energy markets, continue punishing America this way militarily, then, as I said, it was either going to be Israel or America that restarts the military campaign. And here we are. America is going back up the escalation ladder instead of de-escalating. All right. So let's get back to it here.
Unmanned platforms, so things like Reaper drones, and 15,000 service members who are now staying there to respond, essentially, if Iran does attack any of these ships trying to pass through the strait. And that is exactly what happened this morning. According to Admiral Cooper, the Iranians began launching drones, cruise missiles, and small boats at some of these ships, including U.S. Navy ships. And the U.S. military then responded by blowing up about 6 of these small Iranian boats using Apache and Seahawk helicopters. Now, it's important to note here that Admiral Cooper did not say whether or not this means that the ceasefire is over, given that the Iranians and the Americans are now trading shots, essentially, in that strait. He would only say that the U.S. is going to continue to act defensively to try to protect these ships, as well as, of course, its own assets. And one other thing is that he really emphasized that there are no escorts going on right now of these commercial vessels in this area by the U.S. military. Instead, they say that this kind of overarching defensive package that they have built up in that area is creating deterrence. Now, the Iranians, they might have a different perception of that because, of course, they continue to try to take shots at these ships in the waterway. But the U.S. military is saying, look, it's better for us to have this big overall
Your audio has issues. It keeps barking. No, it's CNN VODs. CNN VODs have notoriously had that one weird crunch that happens all the time. We don't know why. But
presence here rather than escort each ship one by one through the strait, which could actually leave them more vulnerable in the end, Boris.
The conflict overspilling from the tensions in the Strait of Hormuz back onto land, back to where it was before the ceasefire went into place almost a month ago, as well as those missiles from Iran hitting the UAE, well, 3 intercepted, as you say, 1 hitting that port of Fujairah. Also in Oman, a tiny seaside hamlet in the peninsula that sticks up into the Strait of Hormuz. That was hit. 2 people injured in a civilian residence there as well. So not just limited to the UAE, but Oman as well getting dragged back into this. As CENTCOM has been saying, they've been able to support what President Trump is calling Project Freedom, and that is an effort for humanitarian reasons to guide commercial vessels that have been stuck now for 2 months inside the Gulf, out through the Strait of Hormuz, out to deliver their goods to the rest of the world. That has involved at least one guided missile destroyer, according to CENTCOM, passing through the Strait of Hormuz today and getting into the Gulf. 2 U.S. flagged commercial vessels making it out, but then a confrontation, according to the Iranian media, IRGC, saying that they confronted with rapid and quick actions preventing a U.S. naval vessel getting into the Strait of Hormuz. At least one Iranian media saying that there were shots fired at the U.S. vessels. Now, CENTCOM has denied that. Now, what does that very complicated and rapidly developing picture look like? It looks like what was conversations about a talks process has turned into significant kinetic activity. The Iranians, though, the ball is in their court to respond to the proposal put to them by the White House over the weekend.
Nick, is it fair to say that this is still technically a ceasefire if you're seeing that kind of attack against Gulf allies and the U.S. response?
What's his name? What did he say? That was weird. That was a moment. That was a weird moment. Okay, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. He didn't mean it. I wasn't alone, it seems, in hearing the words that came out of his mouth, but let's just keep going.
Against these boats in the strait?
I think it's really in question. I spoke with Iranian officials on Friday here, and they said they were very concerned that any sort of easing of blockades around the Strait of Hormuz, they were very concerned that the United States would move in with the Navy to try to take control there. So what appears to be happening by projecting the effort to guide these commercial vessels out of the Strait of Hormuz, it has sort of upped, if you will, that tension, that suspicion on Iran's part that plays into their lack of trust about what the United States' real intentions here are. I have to say, despite that, we've seen these spikes in tensions before, and after a few days, things can potentially calm down. But Iran, again, has escalated beyond the tensions with the U.S.
What do you... Is there a world where we actually look at this stuff sincerely? Iran has escalated tensions. Buddy, there is currently a tolling process on the Strait of Hormuz and a negotiations process. None of this would have happened if America didn't decide to bomb Iran alongside Israel in an act of perfidy during a previous negotiations process. This is ridiculous. Iran has escalated? What do you mean? They brought Iran to the negotiations table and then said, fuck off. What is supposed to happen here? What are they supposed to do? Just not maintain their leverage? Of course they're going to maintain their leverage. This doesn't make any sense. But he's talking about today's escalation. No. Am I missing something? Yes. The reason why Iran is doing that when it wasn't doing it yesterday is because America has decided to force their assets through the Strait of Hormuz. That's the reason. Instead of negotiating with Iran, America has chosen military escalation once again. So obviously, Iran is going to retaliate. I don't know why we behave as though our enemies, like our foreign adversaries, are incapable of making rational decisions or incapable of advancing their own interests. Or if they do advance their own interests, we treat it as though it's like totally ridiculous. We make it seem as though there's not two parties. We make it seem as though there's not two parties to this negotiations process, that they're just doing this for no reason, out of nowhere.
And has now targeted the UAE and Oman, and this really could lead to a potential escalation, a kinetic escalation. If it does, and that continues for the next couple of days, then I think talks will really get sidelined, and it'll be hard to restart them in a meaningful way. Even that's really in question, just because this has played into Iran's fears. They would now say, why would we get around the table again if this is what the United States is going to do?
And Nick Robertson live for us in Pakistan. Thank you so much. Erica?
So let's take you now to the White House. CNN's Kevin Liptak is there. So yesterday, Kevin, we had President Trump saying that the U.S. was having very positive discussions with Iran. Now, on the heels of what we've just heard, of course, from Nick, what changed?
Well, I have to say, we've been getting some mixed signals about exactly what the status of these talks are. You know, 2 days before the president said that they were productive, he said that the latest Iranian proposal was not acceptable.
Yes, he wasn't saying the N-word, Chad. He was saying his name and then going, after, okay?
And so it's not precise.
Come on. Lock in. We got it, okay? Now it's being a little childish, okay? We're behaving like little babies, okay? Ooh. Come on.
Precisely clear where exactly those talks stand, and certainly it's unclear now that we have seen this exchange of fire between the U.S. and Iran.
FARS, a military-informed source. The fire in the UAE was the result of the U.S. Army's adventurism. Following the explosion of widespread fire at the oil facilities of the Fujairah port and the attribution of it to the armed force of the Islamic Republic of Iran, a military-informed official said the Islamic Republic had no pre-planned program to attack the mentioned oil facilities, and what happened was the result of U.S. Army's adventurism to create a passage for the illegal transit of ships through the forbidden routes of the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. Army must be held accountable for it. U.S. statesmen must end the ugly behavior of using force and diplomacy and cease military adventurism in this sensitive oil region that affects the economy of all countries worldwide. Okay, but have you thought about, I live in Fujairah, should I move? That's crazy. You made us do it. I mean, yeah, that is what they're saying, because it's true. If there was a tit for tat war going on, and then they set up a ceasefire, okay, and then America violated the principles of the ceasefire, then yeah, of course they're going to fucking retaliate. What are we talking about? Because if they don't retaliate, then they have nothing. If they don't retaliate, they have no leverage. Why would they not maintain their leverage? I think we have to remember, Iran was attacked first, okay? We got to go back to like 60 plus days ago when Iran was at the negotiations table saying, we will lean into your maximalist demands. We will cave to your demands. We will concede to them as long as you give us sanctions relief. Of course, they have to reestablish that deterrence. There is no ceasefire process. Yeah, Ross Douthat is going to think these boys are going on an epic adventure. This is classic. Yeah. Adventurism in this circumstance means like erratic and decentralized modes of violence. Like it's just irrational, erratic violence. Okay. That's what adventurism is. Doesn't mean it's not a positive thing. It's a negative thing. Okay. The reason why I'm explaining it one more time is because a lot of people don't know, and I use the term adventurism with a negative association to it, and yet people often People often think that means, going on an adventure. You know, it's not a positive thing, okay? Yeah, W Adventures. Okay. Iranian officials have been abnormally quiet despite over 3 hours of strikes being reported in the UAE. Well, they released the statement already.
In the Strait of Hormuz, I think it was clear leading up to the president's decision to put this new initiative into place that he had been growing relatively frustrated with the stasis that had occurred. The war was not happening because the ceasefire was in place, but the Strait was also not reopened, and the talks seem as if they were deadlocked. And this seems to have been his attempt to try and break some of that stalemate to get the ships flowing through this very critical waterway. But of course, the risk there is that the Iranians...
Why is Iran attacking the UAE and not Israel? I don't know. Maybe because currently, as it stands, the United Arab Emirates, which can be seen as an extension of America and Israel, is participating in breaking through the blockade alongside the United States of America. Perhaps that's the reason why the UAE is being attacked.
Fire on some of these ships. The ceasefire is off, and all of a sudden, the U.S. is back at war with Iran. It had been, I think, unclear this morning what exactly Project Freedom would entail. American officials were quick to point out that this was not an escort mission. The word the president used was guide these ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Just in the last hour, we have heard from the head of Central Command, Brad Cooper, describing this as a, quote, a multiple layer effort using aircraft, using ships to sort of create a coordination cell that would allow these ships.
Also, Israel did send Iron Dome batteries, apparently. An Israeli air defense system deployed to the UAE was used to intercept an Iranian missile today, CNN reports. It was recently reported that Israel deployed at least one Iron Dome battery. Bro, if I'm Ukraine, I'm pissed, by the way. Dude. Famously, if you recall, in the early days of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Zelensky came out and was like, Mr. President, we would like to get the Iron Dome, okay? And Israel, because of its, neutral allegiance to Russia, said, fuck off. They literally refused to give Ukraine an Iron Dome or any Iron Dome batteries whatsoever. They said, we can't let them fall in the hands of our enemies, Russia. So in the eyes of Israel now, the United Arab Emirates is worthy of an Iron Dome defense system as opposed to Ukraine. If I am Ukrainian, if I am Zelensky, I look at this and I go, what the fuck are you guys doing? Well, Ukraine kind of well without, though. That is crazy. You think it would not have been good to rush ship a bunch of Iron Dome batteries in especially the beginning? Are you fucking crazy? To to population centers especially? You would have avoided civilian casualties. It's crazy that Israel was like, now, Ukraine, fuck you. UAE, sure, you can have some Iron Dome defense batteries. You can have some. Ow. Fuck. I just hit my foot. I'm just saying, look at the fucking priorities here. If I'm Ukraine, I'm pissed. They are spending my missiles. It's not ours to give, it's Israel's. First of all, it absolutely is ours. What are you talking about? It's a collaborative project. The idea that like Israel gets to make these decisions on their own is so funny. Okay, dude. Sure. It's not the case at all.
To go through the safest channel in the Strait of Hormuz, and just by their presence, try and provide some reassurance to these shipping companies and to the pilots of these vessels that it was in fact safe to transit. Now, what we've seen this morning is, yes, Central Command says that some vessels have gone through, but overall traffic is still down. So it remains to be seen just how effective this approach will be.
For the last 3 weeks, the US Navy has been blockading ships from leaving or reaching Iranian ports. But now the mission is expanding with what President Trump calls Project Freedom. No naval escorts as such, but an attempt to guide neutral shipping.
Yeah, this was also funny too. The Volodymyr Zelensky, in any normal country, purchasing stolen goods is an act that entails legal liability. This applies in particular to the grain stolen by Russia. Another vessel carrying such grain has arrived at a port in Israel and is preparing to unload. This is not and cannot be legitimate. Joel Petlin goes, question for Grok. How many other countries in the world are getting shipments of stolen Ukrainian grain? And how many of them has Zelensky called out for it? Implying that the Jewish president of Ukraine is somehow anti-Semitic for singling out Israel, taking advantage of stolen, Russian theft of Ukrainian grain. What a fucking unbelievable situation. Zelensky's Jewish, by the way. Yeah. 800 Patriot missiles were used for air defense in just 3 days in the Middle East. Ukraine received 604 years of full-scale war. Russia, Iran, and North Korea form a new axis of evil. Ukraine was the first to confront this axis. We continue to fight, but we need support. The free world must stop managing this threat and start defeating it. If there's one country that is more worthy of these defenses, I would say it's Ukraine. Ukraine was illegally invaded by Russia, okay? Illegally invaded and occupied by Russia. Under the standards of international law, not that it fucking matters, obviously. We all know that it's not worth anything. There is a legitimate reason to aid in the defense of Ukraine. We bombed Iran. There was no reason for us to bomb Iran at all, okay? So what doesn't make any sense is for Ukraine to, on the one hand, get mad about how many Patriot missiles were used to defend the Gulf nations after we decided to bomb Iran, while simultaneously be like, no, but we got to keep up the fight. It doesn't make any sense. Israelis in general care way less about Ukraine in either direction than pro-Israel Anglophones. What you're seeing is a crazy, jilted lover's reaction from people with Ukrainian flag, American flag, and Israeli flag in the bio. But what makes this whole episode particularly deranged is that Ukraine is not even attacking Israeli state policy. They're asking to stop a private business from a corrupt transaction that has nothing to do with Israel's national interests. The disconnect I'm seeing between Hebrew language and English language Israel Twitter is utterly fascinating. I'm actually pretty optimistic that the black market grain issue will be resolved, but someone should probably look into this as well. In Hebrew, we should probably stop this, maybe boycott whatever company is doing it. In English, those ungrateful Ukrainian swine must learn their place. Why is North Korea catching strays here? Did they do something that I somehow completely missed? No. The DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, has been aiding and abetting the Russian invasion, both with artillery, with their artillery production, because they have a lot more munitions, and now with sending of they've sent troops, a fuck ton of troops, as a matter of fact. And initially, the DPRK troops that they sent were simply used within Russian borders, but I'm pretty sure they have been also actively invading Ukrainian territory as well. It was initially sent to defend Kursk, but since then I don't know if they're. Since then, I feel like they've been on the front lines as well. They've been captured inside of Ukraine. So they signed a mutual defense pact with Russia when Ukraine invaded Kursk. They activated the treaty and asked for Korea's help. Yeah, and I think the North Korean state has said that 1,400 troops have died in the process as well, right? Isn't it? I think it's 1,400 troops, if I'm not mistaken. Do a lot of them defect? No. What? No. Dude, that is no, of course. No, they do not defect at all. What do you mean? The Ukrainians used to initially make jokes about the DPRK soldiers. But no, their attitude has shifted as well about the DPRK soldiers in general. That they say that they're like pretty fucking pretty tough overall. What? I genuinely do not understand what you're saying. Can you please repeat? What? Repeat what? What are you? Oh my God. HasanAbi is a classic. Can you please look up my previous statement, chatter? I have literally banned you in the past. I have literally banned you in the past for this. I've suspended you in the past because you always do this. No, please. Also, there are hella Ukrainian FPV drones hitting down DPRK soldiers. What? I read it. What? Okay. Do you feel like this was... That's it? That's what you wanted me to read? Take a second off. I hate when people say check logs. HasanAbi is one of the routine abusers of check logs. Check previous. Please don't want to spam. Read last message. No. No, I will not be checking logs. I will not be reading last message. Anyway, where were we? Yeah. Lindsey Graham is demanding aid for the United Arab Emirates here. The combination of Iran's attack against UAE's vital infrastructure and continued attacks on international shipping, including a South Korean cargo ship, more than justifies a big, strong, sexy, mainly hard-dicked response to inflict further damage on Iran's war machine. The UAE has been a champion ally in this fight, doing everything that's been asked of them and beyond. Iran's recent brazen attack against the UAE tells me a lot about who's in charge in Iran and the chance of a diplomatic solution anytime soon. A forceful response with our hard-dicked Marines, with the hardest of penises. On behalf of our ally, United Arab Emirates, will reinforce that America is back as a reliable ally, helping to further wash away the damage caused by the Biden administration on this front. First of all, the Biden administration, okay, from his estimates, did not do this much damage to American force projection capabilities, did not do this much damage to longstanding security arrangements. There is no comparison. I hate Biden for what he did in Gaza. He is a genocidaire, and he will always be remembered as a genocidaire, okay? Having said that, the idea that between Biden and Trump, who has actually destroyed the confidence that the rest of the world had in the American military is not even a fucking question, okay? It's not even a question. Donald Trump is the great nation builder for China. Donald Trump is unbelievably J.D. Pons style. He is doing permanent first world genocide by way of the gas prices. He's doing an incredible job of showing the rest of the world that America's military capabilities are actually not all that great. It's not even a fucking question. It's not even a question at all. Emoji reactions on Israeli platforms to Trump. Senior Iranian military official at this time, we are proving to everyone who is telling the truth, who's telling stories, who talks and who acts. Sorry, but honestly, they're right. They pretty much control the situation. We're punching bags right now. I say this with great sadness. Israel news from the field, uncensored on Telegram. One person was shot by security forces. Weak Trump. Trump in his speech, the war will end very quickly and oil prices will drop like you've never seen. Throw up emoji. Trump avoided saying that the ceasefire was violated. It was not heavy fire. Most were shot down. Clown emoji. Israeli Telegram channels do not fuck with Donald Trump's statements on this. They were already very upset. They were already very mad, according to plenty of reporting at this point, that Donald Trump was even remotely invested in doing a ceasefire with Iran without completely destroying the Iranian state. Okay, Trump did not say that Iran did not violate the ceasefire. He simply did not address the question. Israeli news without censorship. What is this? The mom on Freaks and Geeks is a top 10 mom actor and so underrated. 8-year-old take still as relevant as ever. Thank you for speaking the truth. Why did I fucking click on this dumb shit, dude? We're monitoring the situation, chatters. For many, many days, I have not been able to monitor the goddamn situation. And the first time I start monitoring the situation, you want me to look at some other dumb shit. Okay, what are we doing here? What the fuck are we doing here? Lock in. It's situation monitor time. Okay, Piker Broadcasting Service, sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Okay, the People's Broadcasting Service. Please subscribe. All right. Let's look at the shaky ceasefire at risk, which Donald Trump doesn't say Iran violated for some reason. Okay. Jonathan Karl, in a conversation with Jonathan Karl, ABC News chief Washington correspondent, he said, President Trump said, or President Trump stopped short of saying Iran has violated the ceasefire. Regarding the Iranian drone and missile attacks on UAE today, they were shot down for the most part, Trump told me. One got through, not huge damage. Regarding the Iranian attack on a South Korean ship, we're going to look into it. Shots were fired at the South Korean ship, and I think South Korea should take some action. This was a South Korean ship riding by itself. It was not an escorted ship.
Stranded by the conflict to safety. We will use the best efforts to get ships and crews safely out of the strait, Mr. Trump said on social media last night. They are victims of circumstance. This is a humanitarian gesture.
The U.S., we are just firing if fired upon. We are not the provocateurs here, but if the Iranians want to escalate here, we are willing to escalate.
The Americans say 2 ships successfully crossed the strait today, helped by U.S. Navy destroyers. But in a return to open...
Bro, asking one of our vassals to do their own defense is so funny. I'm serious. It's unbelievably weak for America to be like, yeah, I know we fucked everything up for you guys, but like you should probably send whatever like naval asses you have. Is so funny. What are we doing, man? What the fuck are we doing? It is so bitch made. This goes back to what I was saying about Donald Trump being a great nation builder for China. It goes back to what I was saying about Donald Trump doing unbelievable damage to the confidence that people had in American security. Murtaza Hussein from Dropsite says, South Korea should take some action. South Korea was not consulted about the war or involved in it. nor does it have the expeditionary capabilities or network of military bases in the Persian Gulf necessary to secure shipping there. What are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to do? The only thing South Korea could do is sever ties with the United States of America and commit to a bilateral relationship with Iran in order for them to be able to transit their fucking ships successfully through the Strait of Hormuz, which ironically enough would frustrate the United States of America, which currently has a secondary blockade, rendering any sort of bilateral commitment impossible. So America's secondary blockade is effectively stopping all of these other countries from actually transiting through the Strait of Hormuz by going into an Iranian port, because the American secondary blockade dictates that any ship that touches the Iranian ports, which is necessary, cannot cross through the Strait of Hormuz. That's what the secondary blockade is there to do. So South Korea can't even do any sort of bilateral commitment with Iran and go to Iran directly and be like, hey, you know, we'll purchase your oil or whatever. No harm, no foul. You think they're going to do 9/11 2.0, the manufacturer consent for this bullshit? Look, what have I always said since day one? The only thing standing in the way of America is not like, any sort of like regional superpower, any sort of great power, any sort of international power like China. The only thing standing in the way of the United States of America is its own incompetence. I don't even know if they're capable of pulling off a sophisticated like 9/11 style false flag attack. Okay. So, I mean, you're asking me if that's a possibility, but I don't know. I just don't think. I don't think that America has the capabilities of pulling off a world-changing false flag attack of that magnitude.
Conflict. They also said they had to shoot down Iranian missiles and drones and destroy several small boats. Iran is also accused of firing towards a South Korean cargo ship. But Iranian state television claims the Americans are lying.
The other thing, by the way, is whether or not this would even be believable. I think in this current media environment, if there was a 9/11, most people would be like, oh, America did it to itself. Like, if there was a 9/11 style like domestic terror incident that they tried to pin on Iran, most Americans would probably look at that and go, what the fuck did you just do to us? Not Iran. They wouldn't believe that Iran did it. A lot of people would immediately blame Israel. A lot of people would immediately blame Israel, and many would also probably blame the current FBI and the current State Department. Sure, the Trump supporters would believe whatever the fuck Trump says, but look at what happened after another assassination attempt. Guy comes out, tries to assassinate the president. Immediately in unison, the Republican media goes, oh, this is why we need to build a ballroom. And everyone looks at the situation and goes, yeah, sure, bud. You tried to do this to yourself just so you could build a fucking ballroom.
That no ships have crossed the strait and that any foreign forces will be attacked.
Ships, their owners and shipping companies know well that to ensure their security and safety, they need to coordinate with relevant bodies in the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Tonight, Iran seems to have gone further. This footage from opposition media reportedly showing a fire at an oil facility in the United Arab Emirates after a drone attack. The Emiratis say 3 Indian workers were taken to hospital. The International Maritime Organization says around 800 tankers and container ships are trapped across the Persian Gulf. These ships have an estimated 20,000 sailors on board. This is the only internationally recognized safe route for them to travel through the Strait of Hormuz. But instead, the Americans are now advising ships to travel through territorial waters off the coast of Oman. Iran's Revolutionary Guard is doubling down in response, claiming that the entire waterway between these two red lines is under Iranian control. So a day of tension rising in the Gulf once again, with President Macron among America's allies, no doubt worried that the 3-week ceasefire has either collapsed or is about to.
What we want most of all is a joint reopening between Iran and the United States. That's the only solution that will allow us to permanently reopen the Strait of Hormuz, allow free navigation, and do so.
Bro, this guy literally fucking... This guy in the United Arab Emirates is freaking the fuck out. I hear them going off. Pray for me, chat. Bro, get out of there. Get out of there. If you have the money to get the fuck out of there, get out of there. He's like, I'm in Faraja, bro. I hear the bombs blowing up in the distance. We're praying for you. We're praying for you. Well, I don't think you can get out of there because I assume that they suspended the flights, but...
So without restrictions or tolls.
Tonight, the United Arab Emirates are saying they intercepted 3 missiles here, while a 4th fell into the sea. The Emiratis describing this as a serious escalation to which they reserve the right to respond.
Well, Kate Fisher is in Washington for us. What's the latest from President Trump?
Well, as he begins this operation to try to help the freedom of movement, it looks like this is the most fragile that this ceasefire has been. He's just within the last hour told Fox News that if the Iranians attack US ships, they will be blown off the face of the earth. He's also taken to his Truth Social platform and said that Iran has been taking some shots at unrelated nations. He's referring to a South Korean ship there. And
when you're so rich you forgot that you can move by legs instead of plane, buddy, just look at a map. You know what I mean? It's not super easy to fucking take a multiple day trip out of there, okay? Yeah, just fucking walk out of the United Arab Emirates, this guy said. Fell into the sea. What is this? Much worse than last time? Nearly 1.2 gigawatt fire detected. This was 30 minutes ago. Fujairah was struck. Yeah, it's a lot. Guys. And to the chatter who's right there, he can confirm for us, but clearly it's a laundry fire. Okay, these things happen. It's probably another laundry fire. Okay. Yes, it's a classic. It went up in flames, the laundry. It is. Thank you. Shit, what if Saudi attacks? Oh, yeah, that's the other. Well, I don't think they're going to do that right now, but, you could also be invaded by Saudi Arabia at some point. There's that, too. I would just get the fuck out of the United Arab Emirates if I lived there. I'm just saying.
He joked, maybe now South Korea will join my effort. He has regularly wanted other countries to support the US here. And he also reiterates that the US has shot down these fast boats. He says that is all that Iran has left. We also know that for the first time since this ceasefire was brought in around a month ago, the United Arab Emirates has sent out a missile threat warning to its citizens. So it certainly feels as though this ceasefire is in its most fragile phase yet.
And the oil price going sharply up, what does that mean for the US economy?
Yeah, 4% rise today. Gasoline prices here, Americans love their cars. They've jumped to nearly 50% more than when this conflict began. And it's being reflected in Donald Trump's poll ratings. His disapproval.
You are correct. This is likely a Qatar 280 laundry fire launched from the Bushehr laundry and dry cleaning facility. Many such cases of this happening,
approval rating at a record high. And of course, we've got midterm elections in November, and it won't be good for Republicans trying to get re-elected with this kind of discipline.
Yeah, that's what he's worried about, which is so sad. The only calculation here is not like human lives being lost or the energy markets in a state of crisis, but what this does for not even like the midterms necessarily. When they say, oh, Trump is worried about the midterms, like for the party performance, he's not even worried about, I think, the Republican Party failing. He's worried about what that does to his confidence, right? Like what that says about how much people don't fuck with Trump any longer. That's the only thing he cares about. It's about his own popularity, and that's it. There's no like real there's no real calculation being made about the future of the Republican Party. I just don't think that the administration cares about that, or Trump cares about that at all. Very puzzled by UAE's vision for the future. You can't be Israel or Russia and Switzerland or Singapore at the same time. Exactly. I said this when they pulled out of OPEC, that they think that they're going to be Israel, but they will never be Israel. Only one country is Israel, and that's Israel, okay? I don't know why they think that I don't know why they thought, oh, we'll just fucking pull out the ripcord and just lean heavily into America, and then they'll defend us. They won't. They haven't so far. What makes you think they will now? What makes you think they have the capacity to defend you? Questions that I have that I don't think I'll ever be able to have answers to. Not only do they not have the AIPAC equivalent, but like Israel was able to develop this relationship, this insane relationship with the United States of America over years and years and years of being a reliable and loyal ally and an asset. Like there's no comparison here. One leave OPEC, one singular Iron Dome missile. Yeah, we're talking about 80 years. We're talking about the Cold War, right? We're talking about pan-Arabic nationalism, which necessitated a force that could destabilize and cut through the pan-Arabic nationalism, oftentimes militarily destroy countries that were making moves that could damage America's interest in this oil-rich region. Like even by today's standards, America being an exporter of oil, they wouldn't have cared about Israel as much, right? This is before the shale revolution in America. So, like, there's no way that you can design a similar sophisticated relationship with the United States of America that will never exist ever again. Of the GCC states, the UAE has been the most openly aggressive about rejecting the results of the 6-week war, i.e. defeat, the most openly Israel aligned, clashing with Saudi for not supporting UAE Israel desire for more war. The UAE has learned nothing. Yeah, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't know what the hell they're thinking. It's a very dangerous gamble for them, which is why I'm telling you, if you live in the United Arab Emirates, get the fuck out if you can. If you take both this report and the Axios report about Saudi lobbying for war at face value, then it suggests that Saudi Arabia knowingly created a situation where Iran would try to kill the idea of Dubai. Dilawar Karwan says this tidbit was buried in the Wall Street Journal's report on the UAE leaving OPEC. There were also rumors that KSA was pro-war because it harmed other GCC powers, especially UAE, while leaving Saudi relatively unscathed. Have they cut a side deal with Iran? I don't think they've cut a side deal with Iran, but I think that they have had a rift. Saudi Arabia had a big rift with the UAE already, given UAE's interest in becoming the little Israel in the Gulf, and also aligning heavily with Israel. So they're trying to game it out in a way that favors them.
Approval for the president.
Because remember, the United Arab Emirates has been the #1 defender of Israel in this region, okay?
Kate Fisher. Well, joining us now is Barbara Leaf, who served as Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs under President Biden and was previously the US Ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. What do you make of the situation today?
Well, I think fragile is exactly the right way to describe the ceasefire. Look, there were completely, as far as I can tell, unprovoked attacks by Iran today on the UAE in several different places. One on Fujairah port export facility, and then 4.
What does Little Israel mean? How do I explain this to my parents? The United Arab Emirates is a part of the Gulf Nations coalition, the Gulf countries, right? GCC. The United Arab Emirates has always aligned with Israel, and have secured Israeli interests in the region, petitioned for better relationships with Israel. The United Arab Emirates also has its own regional ambitions as well, sometimes at odds with Saudi Arabia in countries like Yemen, against both Iran and Saudi Arabia. Like these countries that are vassals to American empire. Hey, Hasan, how does the UAE work? I know Saudi Arabia has princes. The United Arab Emirates is a collection of, I believe, 7 emirates, right? Is it 7? I can't remember the exact number, but they're like tiny micro states that are all under the banner of one emirate, okay? They're all monarchies. That's how it works. There's one top guy. There's one top guy that controls all 7 of the tiny nations within this tiny nation. And that's it. Yeah, there's 7 emirates. Each has an emir, and they have a council together. But Abu Dhabi's emir, MBZ, dominates the rest. Makes the final decisions for the rest of them. UAE is a part of Israel. Tasnim. An Iranian military official warns that if UAE becomes a pawn of Israel and takes action, Iran will respond forcefully, adding that Emirati interests could become targets. The official adds, any escalation would trigger a broader response, with Iran no longer exercising restraint and potentially treating UAE as a part of Israel in this conflict. Truth nuke, but it's all, some might even say it's been there all along. Some IRGC commanders have already said that they want to kill the idea of Dubai, openly stating that they want to destroy the United Arab Emirates, basically. And that's part of the reason why they've been pummeling the UAE, because the UAE has been an extension of Israel in the region for a decade at this point.
Cruise missiles directed towards the UAE, which they were fortunately largely able to intercept. Then you've got the random attacks on different ships, either trying to exit the strait or just off the strait.
Right. But, Iran is saying Trump's trying to break the blockade. That's why they're responding. I mean, the brinkmanship on both sides is very alarming, isn't it? I mean, we're very close to a return to war.
Of course. This is definitely on the upswing towards an escalatory cycle on both sides. But what I guess what I'm pointing out is that Iran made clear how it will respond. It shot cruise missiles towards the UAE, which had nothing to do with this. The U.S. Navy trying to clear a way for ships transit. I know one of those ships that transited because I was conversing with a captain on one of them. So
like people who are asking, what about Azerbaijan? They're like the UAE too. Azerbaijan is a relatively new player in all of this. Azerbaijan is also an extension of Turkey, and Turkey plays ball with both sides. It's not like the UAE. The UAE does not play ball with any side other than Israel and America. So Azerbaijan is not like a serious player at all. They're just an energy provider to Israel, and they're mostly just an extension of Turkey's interests. And they're like a junior partner to whatever Turkey's ambitions are in the region. So they get most of their notes from Turkey. Azerbaijan is thick as thieves with Israel, Western intelligence, and Turkey. Erdogan very publicly called on Azerbaijan, to avoid getting sucked into the U.S.-Israel war in Iran after a handful of Iranian drones hit the Nakhchivan exclave. Iranians at the border of the city of Julfa, northwest Iran, saw 6 drones moving towards east and center of Iran, each 2 minutes apart. Julfa borders with Azerbaijan. Yeah. So they're not going to behave in a way like the United Arab Emirates is, and they haven't behaved in a way like the United Arab Emirates has so far. It's not good for Turkey, nor it's good for Iran to also broaden this regional conflict and bring Turkey into the fold as well. So they're not going to do anything. It's not beneficial for Turkey. Erdogan does have like a crumb of sovereignty here, even though it is a vassal. Erdogan and Turkey is a NATO country. It's a vassal for that reason. But Erdogan does have some semblance of sovereignty and will make decisions that keep Turkey out of this broader conflict. And that is what's going on so far. Turkey has no interest whatsoever in participating in this war against Iran. Israel wants to Gaza Turkey. What do you mean? Israel will not be able to Gazify Turkey. Turkey is not Lebanon. Turkey is not Hezbollah. Turkey has the second largest standing military and its own indigenous military industrial complex. It's the largest military in Europe, if you want to call Turkey a part of Europe. So there is no comparison. It's a fucking giant country, almost the size of Iran by population, and has a standing military. It doesn't have striking capabilities like Iran does, but it has a much more competent actual fucking military force. How many New Jerseys is Turkey? I don't know how many New Jerseys Turkey is. Turkey also is. Turkey gets clapped if they don't create an underground drone program. Saddam also had a standing military. True. But again, America supports Turkey. It's a profoundly important military base for the United States of America in the region. It's a partner that plays a huge role. Without Turkey, Syria and the Bashar al-Assad regime would not have been toppled. Okay, it's totally fucking ridiculous. Like, Turkey plays a major role in America's interests in the region. A bigger role than Israel does. It's also a NATO country. Turkey also, given its fake sovereignty, can play the role of a mediator between Russia and America at times. Turkey always plays both sides. But never forget, we're talking about a country that has American nukes inside of American military bases inside of its national boundaries. It's ridiculous to be like, oh yeah, America's just going to drop Turkey and NATO in general at the behest of Israel. I mean, never say never, obviously, because this is an unbelievably pro-Israel country, but I don't know if it would go that far. That would not be beneficial for Israel, I don't think. Of course, Israel has been saying that they want this to happen regardless, but
that was successful, and Iran's attempting to show what it will do in reprisal, which is again direct its fire towards the Gulf states.
Right. I mean, do you see any diplomatic progress towards any kind of settlement here, or are we edging towards, military action being the way Trump gets out of this?
I think it's clear we're edging towards another round of military operations.
But what could that achieve?
Very little in my view. I think it's clear that this effort at economic attrition is the main game, but there are the preparations for another round of military pressures, and I don't see either one of those moving the dial with this regime. There's really, what the administration really needs to do is set itself to a tough diplomatic course, and they don't seem to have the appetite for that.
What do you mean by that? I mean, what would that involve?
That means sitting down at the table and getting into a...
If another country has a military base in your country and put their nukes there, you don't actually have nukes? Yes, I understand that. I'm literally Turkish. What are you talking about? I'm simply stating that Israel attacking a country with American nukes inside of American bases has never happened before. It's a nuclear umbrella. Turkey is a part of the American nuclear security umbrella. Israel is an American vassal. It's an extension of American empire. That would be this would be a very different calculation. Yeah, I get that. My country's in the same situation. Turkey also operates sometimes independently outside of American interests, like immediate American interests. In comparison to like even the European vassal states.
Long set of difficult negotiations.
Ultimately, that is still beneficial for American interests, though, because that way America uses Turkey as a mediator at times, for example, against Russia.
There has been a little bit of movement in this latest proposal, we think, by the Iranians to at least not make it a condition for sitting down at the table that the blockade be lifted. But something's got to give, and otherwise this will head towards military operations again.
Do you think there is a better diplomatic solution than what was effectively the old deal done under Obama? Or is that what we're looking at, rebadged as a Trump deal?
Well, the large difference, the really huge difference, is the fact that virtually the whole nuclear program is shattered. So you've got the leftover pieces of it to deal with.
İhya oldum. Turkey won't survive this decade. Classic Turk in the chat. Classic Turk defeatism in the chat, by the way.
But you're not starting from the same threshold of activity. That's a huge advantage.
Barbara Lee, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Let me begin by saying congratulations to the small business people of the year from all 50 states. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and you can be proud of yourself. Our country's made up of a lot of small businesses, and that ends up...
My mother was a small business. As you all know, just like Kamala Harris, my mother too was a small business, so was my father. We love being a nation of tiny businesses, the tiniest of all. Size of New Jersey, all of our businesses, they're so small. Don't we love it, folks?
Being a really big business. As small business owners and operators, the people in this room represent the 36 million small businesses who create 40% of all economic activity in the United States. Think of that. A group of people added together. You're essentially the most important factor business-wise in the whole country. And this country is leading the whole world. We are now. That I can tell you by a lot. You're the lifeblood of the American economy, and with your help, we're truly making America great again. We're doing record business. We have a stock market that hit even with this military operation, call it whatever.
Can we redact questions? Yo, you think they're going to jail my ass for saying stuff to you? And if they do, stuff to you. And if they do, you got me though, right? Brother, not Turkey, not America, nor Israel is exactly fond of me, okay? I can't begin to explain to you that you are so on your own, okay? There's not a single country on this planet that would that I have any sort of influence over, okay? The only influence I have is negative. You are on your own.
Whatever you want. We can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We hit all new highs, and I said,
He said, can I redact my questions? You'll be fine. You're anonymous.
Take care of business because we can't let that happen. So we did a little detour, and it's working out very nicely. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. They have no radar. They have no nothing. They have no leaders, actually. The leaders happen to be gone also. But can't let them have a nuclear weapon, or you'd have problems like nobody would believe. And it's going very well. We're also pleased to be joined this afternoon by Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, who's been amazing. Where's Chris? Except everybody was wrong. They thought that energy would be at $300, right? $300 a barrel, and it's like at 100. And I think going down, and I see it going down very substantially when this is over, Chris. And I think very rapidly too, at levels that you've never seen, because there's a lot of energy out there. Ships all over the world that are loaded up with it. They can't do much with it because they got kidnapped by a pretty evil place. But we're taking care of it.
So it's day 66 of the Iran war. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Oil is not flowing freely. The US blockade shown here is still in place amidst a battle for who is actually in control of the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and America, amidst loads of claims and counterclaims. Today, Iran issued a new map showing the boundaries of where it claims it's controlling the Strait of Hormuz, either side of Oman. They also claimed that they'd fired 2 missiles and struck an American warship, although counterclaims eventually, although this was just off the coast of Jask outside that area, but the Central Command turned around and said that nothing had been struck. Iran modified their language after that. US command had also claimed that 6 of the fast patrol boats that Iran has been using were blown out of the water. President Trump later said that there were 7 blown out, and also that there had been cruise missiles being used against shipping in the Strait. Again, Iran denied all of this. This comes amid President Trump's claims that 2 US carrier vessels were actually escorted through the Strait of Hormuz successfully earlier on in the day, all part of Project Freedom to restore freedom of transit for commercial.
Have you tried to get Mark Carney on the stream? He's been on podcasts in the past, like Scott Galloway's. Brother, do you think I'm comparable to Scott Galloway? I highly doubt that Mark Carney would come on my broadcast. I mean, I open invite if he wants to, but I don't think he would be down to do that. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Commercial vessels through this area. Again, Iran denies that this was achieved. All of this is designed to relieve the 2,000 vessels and allegedly 20,000 seafarers that are actually trapped in the Strait, in the Gulf of Oman. But US Central Command, how are they actually going to police this new operation? Well, they've got a number of assets they claim to be using, 15,000 troops. There's a Marine Expeditionary Unit in the region. Probably that's where they're going to come from. You've also got aircraft carriers like the Lincoln mounting fighter jets, not only off the carriers, but also off land basing, and then missile destroyers in the region as well. The threats are quite significant. One of them is obviously anti-ship missiles provided by China. They can be deadly. That's why you've got the missile destroyers in place, but also the fighter jets that will look to target the launchers as well. We've also had reports that cruise missiles are being used, again the destroyers, but these are very easy targets relatively for the fighter jets to take out. But the big threat is these fast patrol boats, numerous, often packed full of explosives. And as we can see a couple here, and we'll see a bit later in the shot, significantly more, they can be incredibly dangerous. But if you remember, for the Somali pirating activities, they were very quickly solved by putting armed personnel on board the commercial shipping, because that's a stable platform, soldiers with machine guns. It's relatively simple, but the fast patrol boats have no answer for that. That's almost certainly how the Americans dealt with this threat earlier on. The key issue, though, for all of this is time. If we look at the Strait of Hormuz map, you've clearly got the blockage of the minefield. We're still not sure how many mines are actually in there, but that forces any shipping to go up to the north, just south of Iraq Island and back again. That puts it very close to Iran and therefore a very high threat. It's also, if you're going to get 2,000...
In politics, I don't think you're comparable to Scott Galloway, but in region audience size, yes, you're comparable. No, I have a bigger audience than Scott Galloway does, but that doesn't mean anything because Scott Galloway is safe. Scott Galloway is like a known entity in liberal circles. He's like a well-respected liberal. Scott Galloway also is like kind of is pretty pro-Israel too. That's another huge deal there too. So like, Michael Fusco Art, support your PBS. Thank you. Michael Fusco Art with a 69 tier 1 gifted subs. Thank you, Michael Fusco Art. Thank you for supporting your independent media. $69. Nice.
Vessels out, even if you put them relatively close together, it's probably about a week's worth of transit, 24/7, incredibly risky. And you have to remember, Iran doesn't have to hit all of them. It only has to hit one, and suddenly confidence in this project will be undermined immediately. But for now...
Yes, Iran has to hit an American ship. Like Iran, if Iran wants to establish full tilt military deterrence, it has to hit an American naval asset. Like that would be the ultimate military deterrence in the Strait of Hormuz. If they were to get a successful strike on an American naval carrier, naval asset, then it's unbelievably over. It's more over than it's ever been. They're saying that they have done so. They're saying that they've done so already, but you need to have a clear image of it. You know, without that, it doesn't mean anything, because if they've been able to hit an American asset, if they've been able to hit an American asset here, it might deter America from continuing military operations. But if it's just like a minor dent or something, they could just like write it off as a laundry fire, right? As they have done so in the past. So that's the situation. All right. Let's look at what Trita Parsi had to say to Drop Site News. Trump snatched defeat from the jaws of success. Dr. Trita Parsi, Iran expert at Quincy Institute, friend of the show, told Drop Site that Trump squandered a ceasefire that disproportionately favored the United States. Trump really snatched defeat from the jaws of success because the ceasefire actually disproportionately favored the United States, Parsi said. Without resuming the war, Trump could have alleviated pressure on global energy markets, eroded Iranian leverage, and drawn out a negotiating process without immediately lifting sanctions, one of Tehran's core demands. Instead, he escalated. The more aggressive Trump's rhetoric tends to become, the more he says that Iranians are in disarray, the more it tends to be a reflection of the fact that his own negotiating position has become tremendously vulnerable and weakened, Parsi said. This is also true. Parsi said that Trump has also appeared to embrace the faulty FDD projections including those produced by the neoconservative think tank Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, which is, again, an Israeli cutout, just so you understand. Initially started as under the name Emet, Hebrew for Truth, in 2001. Its stated purpose for Foundation for Defending Democracy was to defend Israel's interest in America, to launder Israel's reputation in America. FDD is a reflection of whatever the Israeli goals are, and they are inside of the administration. It's Benjamin Netanyahu's own personal think tank, and they have FDD guys that are in the negotiations rooms now. As this past week, Donald Trump hired someone from FDD to sit next to Witkoff and Jared Kushner. So it's totally ridiculous. But yeah, FDD, in the interests of advancing Israel's goals here, is going to sully any kind of negotiation process that might be implemented and continue feeding bad information to the United States of America. And we all know how that fucking worked so far. FDD has convinced Trump that his naval blockade would bring a weakened and more pliable Iran to the negotiating table. Trump began claiming that Iranian oil infrastructure was on the verge of catastrophic failure. On what Trump is actually seeking, Parsi said, I think Trump is looking for some sort of spectacular military action that is not necessarily successful on a strategic level, but on a tactical level gives the impression that he has dominance, escalation dominance, and control, and then go to the negotiating table and strike a deal. The Iranians are not going to allow him to get that. It may actually prove to be a blessing for the Iranians if Trump resumes military attacks, Parsi said. Is Sarah Longwell coming on the broadcast? No. Where is this coming from? What? Did she even indicate she wants to? I would love that. Why are you spamming this? Anyway, Iran still has escalation dominance in this scenario. On the contrary, I think the Iranians have now further honed their strategy. They are more confident about exactly what they can achieve, Parsi said. Iran would likely expand attacks in the Gulf, particularly targeting the UAE, Israel's closest Arab ally. The report was published just before the U.S. attacks on Fujairah, UAE, were confirmed later in the day on Monday. On Trump's China visit scheduled for May 14th, Parsi said, economic pressure is the only news that seems to impact the White House. The only thing that reaches him is how bad the economy is going. It used to be markets and munitions, and now it's markets, munitions, and midterms, right? Like domestic pressure coming from inside of or domestic pressure coming from the Republican Party's future, domestic pressure that impacts Trump's popularity, domestic pressure that is increasing as a consequence of prices for the average American consumer at the gas pumps skyrocketing, right? The only thing that reaches him is how bad the economy is going and how much of a problem it's going to be for him if he has to show up in Beijing and face the Chinese from this utter position of embarrassment and weakness. Hold on. Let me get back to it real quick. Where the fuck is it? Oh, here. He still has this false illusion that the blockade, one way or another, is going to deliver him the type of victory that will rewrite the entire history of these last 7 to 8 weeks. If he goes after Iran's exports to China, he will not only escalate this regional conflict into a global conflict, but he will further push up oil prices, which will backfire faster on him than it will backfire on the Iranians. On Iran's emerging toll system, Parsi said that while some countries may balk at the idea of paying tolls to Iran, eventually they would accept this as a new norm. At the end of the day, they need their oil and they will pay the fees. And the Iranians are going to use the fee collections, not necessarily as something that replaces all income, but something that forces countries to reestablish financial connections with Iran, countries that otherwise had left the Iranian markets as a result of U.S. sanctions, he said. Now the Iranians have leverage to push them back in. And that is of tremendous value to them to be able to make sure that they have these connections. This is precisely the reason why I said from the start that America's interest in adding the European partners into the fold was not to have them necessarily fuck, I can't even, I'm all over the place. America's interest, stated by Marco Rubio, was to apply pressure to Iran. That wasn't to actually have their military assets in the region, because America has maximum military leverage, right, in comparison to the European allies. What the fuck is one like nuclear aircraft carrier from France going to do, right? That Americans can't. America has 11 that they can use against Iran if they choose to do so, right? The real reason why they wanted European partners to engage Iran militarily was not for the military pressure, but more so for the diplomatic pressure. because Iran is, by way of the toll system, forcing bilateral commitments with EU partners. Okay? Iran wants to be a sovereign state that is a normal country that can have normal commerce with these international, with the rest of the markets, even if they can't do it with the United States of America, because that was one of the big problems with the sanctions regime, was that all of these other countries, worried about secondary sanctions that they might receive from the United States of America, stopped trading with Iran. Okay? And Iran is successfully implementing these bilateral commitments right now with all of these other countries, including with France. Okay? The plan was simple. The UAE exits OPEC, breaks free from its limits, and ramps up production. 2 days later, America announces Operation Freedom and forces open the Strait of Hormuz. Emirati oil floods the market, prices crash, and Iran loses its only powerful card in negotiations. Iran sent a strong, clear message today. You want cheap oil? You won't get it unless you return to negotiations and provide guarantees to implement our demands that you agreed to discuss. By successfully foiling their plan, Iran will return to negotiations from a stronger position than before, and it will prove to the world that it controls the Hormuz, and whoever controls the Hormuz controls the oil, and whoever controls the oil controls the world. Okay, this is a little bit aggressive, but yeah. Thoughts on China telling firms to ignore sanctions? It makes total sense. Obviously, China has been ignoring the sanctions. Why the fuck would they not say this publicly? Trump is repeatedly overplaying his hand on Iran and America's strategic detriment. China is now telling firms to ignore new U.S. sanctions on Iranian oil. Per Bloomberg, this signals a far more aggressive stance from China and risks pulling global banks into a U.S.-China standoff. You don't want to have this conversation because Donald Trump did not successfully decouple the rest of the world from China. That was the goal of the Liberation Day tariffs, if you recall. But that failed. Okay? That fucking failed. America had to buckle under the pressure. And therefore, America does not have the capacity to force other countries to no longer trade with China. China is still the manufacturing hub of the planet. Explainer why China decided this time to directly resist latest U.S. sanctions. Trump in his eternal wisdom all but forced them to. Huge news in China today since Besant actually sanctioned larger entities this time. Hengli is a huge deal. China is entirely willing to fight economic war over this from what I can see. I will now talk about why Hengli is a big deal and why the Trump admin stepped over the line. Yeah, this was China invoking the blocking statute for the first time. China's Ministry of Commerce has for the first time activated its 2021 blocking rules, ordering all Chinese firms and individuals not to comply with U.S. sanctions targeting 5 independent Chinese oil refineries accused of purchasing Iranian crude. This leaves only one option for the United States of America. Either the United States of America now will forcibly overtake Iranian oil tankers that are slated to arrive at Chinese oil refineries, or they just have to back away from it. America, that has had a terrible time so far trying to militarily dominate Iran, a much smaller country than China, now has to go up against the manufacturing base of the entire planet. It's not going to happen unless they're fucking insane. And, you know, the reasonable option here is to back the fuck away. But also, the reasonable option has always been to also negotiate with Iran. The reasonable option was to never bomb Iran. But America never takes the reasonable option. So I don't know. Like the logical steps to take here is not to add a secondary blockade, which America did. The logical step here would be to de-escalate. Okay?